Hey you all! Good evening! I am back again with another video. And I'm sorry I will not be so genki today. I've been sick for the past days and I am trying my best to get through this vlog just for you. But firstly, I want to congratulate everybody who made it to the second phase of the battle. So for those who's gonna do their interview, demo lesson, and exam, around the end of this week or by next week, congratulations guys, you're already getting there. Just last step and then you're already here with us in Japan. That's almost sure already. So for those who did not make it to the cut, I would want to say that I'm sorry to hear that, but I'm sure that maybe this year is not just the year for you. Maybe JET program is not ready for you, though you're ready for the JET program. But don't lose hope. Just keep on trying. Give it another shot next year, and maybe next year could be your year. Without further ado, let's move on with the tips that I'm gonna give you for the interview and demo lesson and exam. But just a little disclaimer for everybody, I will not discuss anything specific, say the specific questions that were asked to me during my interview or the specific questions I encountered during my exam or even the responses that they gave me after my demo lesson, because we actually signed a disclosure form to keep all these information private. So I hope you understand that we ALTs are trying our best to share our knowledge so that we can help you get through this stage of the application so you can be with us. Be with us. Yeah, let's do it. Let's move on. Let us divide this talk into 4 parts. First part, I'm going to tell you about the things you need to prepare and plan before the interview. And then second is the interview tips. And then third will be the tips that I got for you to ace the demo lesson. And then the fourth part will be things that you might encounter during your examination and how you're going to get through it. So let's begin. This is going to be a long evening. Okay, for the things you need to prepare and plan before the interview, I have 7 tips for you. For tip number 1, kindly read the general guidelines, your application form, and most importantly, your statement of purpose. Remember that the panelists or the interviewers, they only know you by paper because that's the first stage of the application. So if ever they want to clarify something, they want to follow up on something that they've read from your SOP, then that's going to be the time that they will do that. So make sure that you keep your SOP in mind and the contents of your SOP. That's going to be pretty wise to do that. Tip number 2, go to the embassy at least 30 minutes. Not really inside the embassy, but just somewhere close to the embassy because you don't want to miss your shot. You only get 1 shot for your interview, your demo lesson, and your exam. And girl, you don't wanna miss that. But do not go inside the JCC or library building just yet. For every candidate, you get 25 to 30 minutes for your interview, exam, and demo lesson, and you don't want to disrupt other candidates as they do their thing. But still, guys, make sure that you have, say, around 5 minutes because you need to register on the gate and then surrender your laptop, cell phone, flash drive, or memory card at the gate because those are not allowed inside the embassy. Okay, moving on with my tip number 3. Make sure that you have a backup copy of your materials. So what I'm trying to say here is you're not allowed to bring your laptop, right? Your flash drive or your phones. So the smartest way to keep a backup plan with you is to use traditional learning materials. So there will be instances that technology will fail you, but make sure that you're already prepared for that. So I think bringing traditional learning materials that is parallel to the content of your presentation would be very, very smart. So it's not that I'm being OC, it's just I'm being sure because you don't want to miss this shot, remember? Okay, and tip number 4. So as you know, an email was sent to you containing your time of interview, demo, lesson, and exam, and the order of those three. So just make sure to follow the rules and do not insist on doing something first because it is convenient for you, because there is a specific schedule for every step during this phase of the application. So my last tip for the preparation. So my last tip for you for the preparation is practice the interview session. I know, hold it. I know you're rolling your eyes at me right now, but what I'm trying to say here is what I did during my time. I have gathered a bunch of information about the interview. There are hundreds of ALTs on YouTube talking about the interview phase and how they made it through the interview. So I was able to gather the information from all those videos and the blogs that I've read, and I have just gathered all the questions that might be asked to me during the interview. I've actually gathered somewhere around 40 to 50 questions, and then before my interview I was asking myself that while I'm in front of the mirror, because I want to have a stimuli or a background knowledge about the topics that might be asked of me during my interview. So I think it really prepared me really well, and though the interview, demo lesson, and exam were all nerve-wracking, I was able to have that peace inside me, convincing myself that I can get it through that day peacefully and successfully, and I did. So let's now move on with the tips that I have for you during the interview. Okay, number one, I know that the interview can be very, very nerve-wracking, but please contribute to the good atmosphere up there at JICC. I know that there are other candidates that you might meet while you're waiting for your turn. Just be nice to them. A smile won't actually cost you any money. So, yeah, be nice to everybody because they might be your future co-ALTs. Then tip number 2, if ever you know how to introduce yourself in Nihongo or Japanese language, I suggest you do so. So what I'm trying to point out here is you're trying to practice inclusivity in that room. There might be a Japanese panelist or a Japanese interviewer. They might not be a Japanese interviewer, but come on, just practice your Nihongo self-introduction or Jiko Shokai so that if ever there is somebody there, I know he or she can understand English really, really well. You want to make her or him feel that he or she is included in that session or interview session. So, yeah. This is the time to show off your very basic Nihongo Jiko Shokai. Okay, let's move on with tip number 3. Speak clearly. What I mean by this is that I know that most of you who made it to the interview, the demo teaching, and the exam are excellent in their command of the English language. But then again, be mindful about your true goal during this interview. Your goal is to communicate your perspective, your point of view. You want to convince them that you can be a part of the JET program and you can be an effective ALT. And you deserve this position. But if you just keep showing off your highfalutin words or your very rich vocabulary, that would give them an impression that you're really bright. So ask yourself, if you're gonna use very technical words during the interview, yes, it's gonna impress them, but you also want to give them an impression that you are somebody who can adjust the level of your English. So if your students have a lower level English, you can also get there. So you can reach out on them. That's what your goal is about, to communicate that you can be a very versatile or flexible ALT or English teacher. Okay, so moving on. Where am I now? Tip number 4. Never, ever, ever hesitate to ask them to repeat the question. So what other people think about interview is that when you ask the interviewer to repeat the question, it means that you're not listening. It's not that. There will be a chance, of course, in an interview that you are being asked of one question, then you're trying to come up with an answer, then another question will be thrown at you again. So sometimes it kind of confuses you and it kind of distracts you. So it's okay to just ask them to repeat the question once again. So the main reason why it is alright for you to ask them to repeat the question is because you want to give them the right answer. Okay, you don't want to give them an answer that's not entirely connected to what they're asking about. Okay, let's move on with number 5. My tip number 5 for you is, excuse me, pizza. Be genuine yet smart with your answers. What I'm trying to say about this one is, I'm gonna give you a very specific scenario, okay? If ever you are asked of this question, I can give you 2 ways to answer it, and it's up to you how you're gonna answer it. The first one is the smart way to answer it, and the second one is like the genuine and smart way to answer it also. I'm not saying that it was asked of me during my interview, but for example, the question is, so, you're Filipino and we have a very tight family bond here in the Philippines. What if you feel homesick while you're in Japan? How are you gonna address this matter? The smart way to answer that is, oh, thank you for that question. I think I'm a very independent, strong woman, and every struggle that you throw at me, I can get through it because I believe in myself and I know myself. That's pretty smart. It's really smart to know yourself and to know that you can get through these struggles because it's gonna be really a struggle. But the genuine way and smart way also to answer it is, oh, I know that there will be a lot of times that I will miss my family and I will feel homesick, but I will try my best to acknowledge this problem and to ask for help from those who can offer me help. I know that the JET program has a lot of network and people behind it who are willing to help me. I have my co-ALTs, I have the Filipino community in Japan, I have people from the JET program. I know that the JET program can provide me the help that I need. Okay, so those are 2 ways you can answer that question. So remember, be smart yet be genuine. I chose that specific question because you cannot simply ignore the fact that you're gonna be living here in Japan alone. And being a Filipino, we're very used of having our family, our friends around us. They're just a call away or a text away. But when you're in Japan, you will have to live on your own and you have to get through the struggles on your own. But you gotta remember that there is a wide network of people who can help you out. You are not entirely alone. There are a lot of people who can help you out. Those who are from the JET program or those who are around you. You just have to reach out to them. Tip number 6. If given a chance to ask the interviewers any kind of question, please do not ask them about the remuneration or anything that's related to money matters. Well, it's not just me personally, but generally, it is not appropriate that when you're given a chance to ask the panelists a question, the first thing that's gonna come up in mind is, how much do you think I can save for a month if ever you start paying me? So you have to show them that you are genuinely interested about Japan and your main purpose is to help the Japanese students see the rest of the world. Also for you to progress in your career as an English teacher so that when you go back to the Philippines, you can contribute to the wellness of your own home country. So regarding the money matters, there will be a perfect time and perfect place for you to talk about that. So moving on with tip number 7. When you are asked to give a specific scenario, please kindly do so. I cannot stress this enough because this is very important. So generally, though you're not an education graduate, some of the panelists would be very interested to know if you have teaching experience. If ever you have volunteered before to teach in your church for the little kids, or if ever you were asked to do a Sunday school session in the past, then go on and mention that, because that would be a plus point for you. And those experiences could help you when you're already inside the classroom as an ALT in Japan. Next, we have tip number 9. Firstly, let me say that Japan is a beautiful place. I have never seen a place as beautiful as Japan before. And I know some of you might be thinking that if ever you already got in here, if you already moved to Japan, maybe you can stay for good or for long. But during the interview, please be careful and be mindful about mentioning anything about your dream to stay in Japan for good and not returning to your home country. So the JET program needs ALTs who are genuinely interested about contributing to the wellness of Japan, and at the same time, when they're done with the program and they've learned a lot about the program, so you can also share the experience that you've had in Japan. And that is also a part of your job, to be a representative of your country. So I hope you keep that in mind. And for the last tip number 10. So a lot of jet-related interview blogs and vlogs have discussed about this question. The question is, what is your main purpose? Why you want to be a part of the jet program? That's a very basic and general question, but I am expecting that you will not give them a generic answer. If ever you have read something from the website or from the general guidelines, please try your best to describe it on your own words why you want to be a part of the JET program. But at least mention something about internationalization, because that is the main goal of the program. Okay, let's now move on with the tips I have for you to ace your demo lesson. Tip number 1. Pattern your lesson with EFL students in mind, not Filipino students. So I cannot stress this enough. There is a big difference between the Filipino English and Japanese English. And you will learn more of that and you will experience more of that when you get here in Japan. But at the moment, I will suggest that when you are making your lesson, kindly pattern it to how an EFL or ESL classroom would do it. If you don't know much about EFL or English as a foreign language, or ESL, English as a second language, kindly do your research about it, because that is how we teach English here in Japan. So what you want to do is kind of tone down the difficulty of the content, the grammar, and the activities. You will get a lot of ideas over the internet. Just please kindly do your assignment. My second tip for your demo teaching: include fun in your lesson. It'll showcase your teaching strategy. And also include grammar, because it'll showcase your mastery of the lesson. So regarding being genki or being really fun inside the classroom, of course you have to be appropriate according to your target students. If ever your target student is SHS, it's okay not to be 200% genki. But if your target students are elementary students, first, second, third graders, then go on, be full on genki mode. Next one is my third tip. It would be interesting if your topic has something to do with your culture from your country, say from the Philippines. Any part of your culture or any tradition that you have in your country or home country that you think will be very interesting for Japanese students to know, then go on, include it in your lesson. So you're gonna give the panelists an impression that you can represent your country as you do your job, teaching English. Okay, next one is tip number 4. Make sure to use both traditional and modern teaching materials. The program needs ALTs who are very flexible and versatile and who can think on their feet. Though you can use the PowerPoint presentation and they will have a projector over there, they also have a whiteboard where you can post pictures or jot down any information that you have to write down on the board. So make sure that you use both of those so they can see that if ever you are assigned to a rural place without projector, without computer, then you can still succeed in the teaching process. Moving on with tip number 5. Include the interviewers in your lesson. Yeah, ask them questions if you must. And you don't have any students inside that room, go on and ask them. Make sure that you think of them as your student and your level of English would be parallel to what your target students are. It's gonna be fun on your side and on their side at the same time. And next is tip number 6. Are we? Okay, make sure that you print out your lesson plan. So it is not really a requirement for you to print it out and give it to them, but this will give a very good impression to the panelists that you are prepared that day, that you got everything covered. So prepare 3 to 4, even 5 copies of your lesson plan. Even though they don't ask you for a copy, just go to them, approach them and ask them, do you need a copy of my lesson plan? Because I have it here. So it gives them a really good first impression that you prepared so much for this demo lesson. So please, kindly do yourself a favor and print out your lesson plans. And speaking of lesson plans, make sure that you double check and triple check your lesson plan. No grammatical errors, no fragment, no errors on punctuations, no typos, and make sure you indicate the age of your students or your target students or the grade level at least and the grammar content of your lesson. For tip number 8, so you're gonna be given a specific time for your demo lesson. Make sure that you still divide the time that's given to you into parts. Say you have a warm-up activity and then you got your grammar content and then you got your activity and then your quiz. This kind of strategy when it comes to doing your lesson gives an impression to the panelists that you can organize and manage your time well. Because if you're already an ALT here in Japan, some of us are experiencing that we're only given 25 minutes or 30 minutes for our lesson, but we cannot go beyond that because the JTE or the Japanese teacher of English would also need their time to interact with the students. And tip number 10, the very last but not the least. So make sure to create a swift transition from one part of your lesson to another without causing a dead air. And in a snap, they could think a lot of negative things about you having a lapse or a dead air. So I think that's it. Let's move on with the tips that I got for you for the examination. We're getting there, we're almost finished. Come on, please stay with me. For the examination, tip number 1, be careful of your punctuations, capitalizations, and overall technicalities when it comes to written English. You want to show them that you have a really good command of the English language, not only with listening, with speaking, with writing. Okay? Number 2, the content of your answer should support the content of your SOP. Okay, number 3, be concise with your answers. In some questions, words are very limited. So make sure that you're using your words wisely. Next one, number 4, being honest, guys. This kind of exam will not measure how much you know about Japan, about the culture, about the education of Japan, or about the JET program. It doesn't measure that. It actually measures or tests your ability on written English, how well you are with written English. So guys, give the biggest consideration on the technicalities of your answer during the exam. Okay, next, number 5. If anything comes up, there will be an assistant assisting you during the exam. If anything comes up, I'm honest with anything, something funny on the keyboard, something pops up on the screen of your computer, or there's a blurry word on the paper, just anything, ask for assistance because you don't want to risk it. You don't want to be just a know-it-all person and then at the end regret about not just asking for assistance. And they're very much willing to help you. I am sure about that. And tip number 6, and the very last one, The exam is time restricted, so make sure that at least 3 minutes or 5 minutes before the time is up, you still have that time as an allowance to check all your answers, just to go through with anything to make sure that you got everything covered up. So, yeah! We're done with our vlog for tonight. I hope that I was able to give you good tips. Don't worry, you guys, you're almost there. You're just one step away from achieving your goals and be here in Japan with us all. So guys, I hope that you put your best foot forward in this part of the application process. And I want to say, ganbate kudasai, everybody. I cannot wait to have you all here in Japan with us. And you know, one thing is for sure. If you offer everything that you do unto the Lord, it will surely be successful. Good luck, everybody! Kayang-kaya. Tayo pa ba? Pinoy eh. So, that's me for today. I gotta say bye-bye and good night. This girl deserves her sleep. Bye-bye, people! Actually, I'm still here. Yeah, I need to turn off the cam. Bye!